Good morning, Tebogo. Uh, Buhle, nje uyifome quorum.
Not yet, sir.
How many members are here? Honorable Bateman is here. Honorable Paisley is here. So it's the three of us.
Yes, sir.
There's 4 members, Chairperson.
Sir, for me.
Bo. Buhle. It's myself, Honorable Paisley, Honorable Bateman. Who else?
Okay, Hatebe had joined. I see he's off the platform again.
Okay.
No, he is still on the platform. Mr. Hatebe.
I don't see him from my side. Has he joined?
I also don't see him.
Please
He's near the
admit him.
bottom. He's near the bottom.
I don't see him from my side. Have you admitted
Oh,
him?
yes, there's it. But we still need one more member.
Bungan, are you there? What's the quorum now? Isn't it now we are 11? Isn't it? Are we 11?
Yes.
We are 12.
11, sir. So a quorum would be 6.
Yeah.
50 plus 1 makes it 6.
No, okay. Buhle, I see on the participants there are 18, but my dashboard here only shows 7. There's something wrong with my computer. There are 19 participants. What's happening? How do I do this? Can you check who's there? I seem to have a problem with my laptop.
We have only the 4 members.
Let me try to call Honorable Squati to get the ANC members to join me. Honorable Makuwele indicates that she has joined. Makuwele, are you there?
Yes, Chairperson, I'm in the meeting.
Can you check your colleagues from the ANC? They are not here and we're not forming a quorum. 7 minutes late now.
Okay, I'll do so, Chair.
Okay.
Chairperson, we now form a quorum.
Okay. Let's start with our meeting. Let me see if my video is working. It's quite very poor. We've got the challenge of connectivity here in at the Laboria Park. So let me not switch on the video. I can see that the bar is very low. Be that as it may, honorable members, the meeting is officially open. Let me welcome members of Standing Committee Finance, welcome the support team of Finance Standing Committee and all other teams from Parliament, Communication, and PBO, Legal, and all of you. You are all welcome. Roll call and apologies. Do we have apologies?
Yes, sir, we have an apology for Miss Alexander.
Okay. Honorable Alexander has apologized.
Chair, may I submit?
Yes, Honorable Galega.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. My apologies. I'm in the bus, but I'm also having a appropriations meeting at 10. I'm not sure if this meeting will be done by that time, but I have connected. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Honorable Galega. Those are the two apologies. Okay, let's proceed to item 2. Briefing by the support staff of the committee on the legacy report of the 6th Parliament Standing Committee on finance. Dr. Slope is going to lead us. Over to you, Dr. Slope.
Yes, good morning, Chairperson and honorable members and colleagues who are on the platform and members of the public if they are here. Today we're going to present the legacy report of the Standing Committee of the 6th Parliament. I'm just going to share it now here on the screen. I'm not sure if it appears on the screen that side, Chair.
Yeah, it appears. You can proceed.
How much time do you have, Chairperson, for this? Because I think you have had a briefing from entities. I don't want to labor too much on issues that you are familiar with already.
Because we'll also have PBO later. If it takes you 30 minutes to take us through, will that be fine?
That will be fine, Chairperson. That's perfect.
Okay. Please
Okay,
proceed.
yeah. Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, I'm sure that members have met with all the entities that fall under the portfolio of finance. So some of the things that will be presented here might be familiar with them. But here we're presenting really what the 6th Standing Committee on Finance did during the 6th term of Parliament. So the mandate and functions of the committee, Chairperson, the committee is established by Section 4. We normally refer to as the Money Bills Act. So this act establishes the committee specifically to look at the national macroeconomic and fiscal policy of the government. So what normally happens under this mandate, the committee will process the fiscal framework, which is the national budget, the revised and proposed fiscal framework, which is normally done around October, November. The revenue proposals, which means those are the tax bills that are proposed every year. Normally, we deal with these bills every year. It's the monetary amounts, it's the TLEP, which is tax laws amendment bill, and the tax administration bill. Every year we always have to deal with that. So that's what the committee is established for by the Money Bills Act. But also, as a committee of parliament, the committee has powers that portfolio committees have. So it's important to emphasize this, Chairperson, to members that as a standing committee, standing committees are established by a particular piece of legislation. There's a couple of them in Parliament. You've got SCOPA, you've got the Standing Committee on Auditor General, you've got Standing Committee on Appropriation, which is also established by the Money Bills Act. Then you have portfolio committees that are generally established through the constitutional powers that every portfolio of government must be monitored by a portfolio committee. So we have a committee which is a standing committee established by legislation to deal with macroeconomic issues. Then on the other hand, we also become a portfolio committee on finance. So we've got these two committees in one. So that's why when we structured this, we said, let's look at the work of the standing committee, which is given by mandated by legislation. And let's also look at the work of the portfolio committee, which is mandated by the Constitution and the rules of Parliament. So as a committee of Parliament, it's expected to conduct public hearing on any of its legislative and oversight activities and consult with other relevant committees. We do that when we process the money bills. We do that when we process the fiscal framework and revised fiscal framework. Also, as a portfolio committee on finance, you have to monitor the financial and non-financial performance of all entities that fall under the Ministry of Finance, which were in Parliament last week to present on their mandates. We have to process their general finance legislation, which means if there is a law that affects the Financial Intelligence Center, we have to amend that law, or if we have to initiate, we have to, members can initiate as a private member's bill based on that, So you have to process those general laws which are beyond the revenue laws that we pass every year, which are beyond the tax bills. You have to ensure that also when we're dealing with portfolio committee work, we facilitate public participation, and we also maintain oversight generally over the executive and entities that fall within the portfolio of finance. So we've got this. That's why in February, you find that we have to deal with the national budget. And then soon after that, we go to the department to deal with the budget itself, of the budget vote of the department. So we process and we write the fiscal framework report, and soon after that, we go and deal with it. That happens also around October. We have to process the annual reports and the BRRR. In a week later, we have to start dealing with the revised fiscal framework, the MTPBS. We also have to deal with a day after we pass the MTPBS, we have to submit 3 reports of the tax laws, which becomes really, really hectic for the staff around that time, because other committees, there's no other committee that does that in Parliament, that does standing committee work and also does portfolio committee work at the same time, with the capacity that the committee has. So just as a summary, this is what we do, the mandate and functions of the committee. The oversight that we play over the entities, I have to mention these entities, although you already know them. If we have a revenue authority, which is SARS, then we have entities that are in the insurance and investment space, such as the PIC and SASRIA. And we have development banks, which is the DBSA and Land Bank. We also have regulatory agencies, accounting standard boards, CBDA. I'm sure now it will move from this portfolio. I wasn't there last week to be able to hear what happens with the new act, whether they are going to move from the finance portfolio to be with the small businesses and development ministry. We've got the Financial and Fiscal Commission, which always assists us when we're dealing with the fiscal framework and the revised fiscal framework. We've got FISCA, which is the regulatory agency. We've got IRBA, and all these institutions, which are ombuds and Office of the Tax Ombuds as well. They all presented last week. We have government components, which is GPA and GTEC. We also have the GEPF, and we have the South African Reserve Bank, which will be having a workshop with us tomorrow. Under the South African Reserve Bank, it's got subsidiaries such as the Prudential Authority, such as the Corporation for Deposit Insurance, which has recently been formed. All these entities, they submit their plans in Parliament, and as a committee that is allocated this work, we are mandated to consider and report on those reports that they submit to Parliament. Either it's an annual report or either it's an APP or strategic plan. We are expected to consider. But sometimes in the past, we have not been able to do that because of capacity issues and time, actually. We'll meet them now during induction, but for us to be able to meet them every time we're processing budget votes, it has not happened. It's been quite difficult to do that, as it was difficult even this year. This was not unique. Even in other years, it has been like that. And we hardly see annual reports of some of the entities. So that's one of the issues that as a portfolio committee, if we are given that function, we must consider, if they table reports, we must consider and report on those reports to the National Assembly. That has not been happening in the 6th Parliament. That was the issue. But if you look at the statistics of the committee here, we hold a lot of meetings as a committee. For the 5 years, we held 235 meetings in the 6th Parliament. An average committee has about, average committee in Parliament holds about 120, 130 meetings in the whole 5-year term. So we are more than double what an ordinary committee holds. I was looking at legacy reports of many other committees. There are committees which had 90 meetings for the whole 5 years. 90 meetings throughout that. So it's a lot given this combined mandate. And the legislation that we pass, I think we're much more like the Appropriations Committee as well, because it has to pass DORA and all these other appropriation bills every year. We passed 33 legislation. Half of these legislation are money bills, which we have to process every year. And then general legislation that deals with the entities that we have, like IRBA, like all of them, we only took 3 oversight trips as a committee, under overseeing such a huge portfolio. To have only 3 oversight trips, it's really a huge problem throughout the 5-year term. Because you've got projects like the Jobs Fund, they are saying you're creating 20,000 jobs here and so on. We have never even seen any of those projects being implemented. You've got the PIC saying we're funding these projects. And as a committee on finance, we're supposed to be seeing all those projects that are being implemented so that we've got an idea of this service delivery that we're supposed to oversee. We didn't undertake any study tour as a committee, and we processed 6 international agreements, which were mainly on tax issues, double taxation. You will have seen the more details in the report. We made one statutory appointment. It was the appointment of the PBO director throughout that 5 years. The reports that we tabled in Parliament that emanate from the committee is a total of 71 reports, because when we pass a bill, we also adopt a report. When we pass a fiscal framework, we adopt a report, and so on. So these are the number of reports. When we conduct oversight, we also do the same. We table the report. One of the issues that is quite a problem is in the committee is the capacity for writing reports, which has to be taken with the administration of Parliament. That there has to be enough people who are able to write reports for the committee, because sometimes work becomes very hectic around it. Let's move to oversight issues. We conducted a lot of interesting oversight in the 6th Parliament, but one thing that was initiated by the committee through the chairperson was that we always get bad or adverse comments or opinions or findings from the AG. But what happens to the audit action plans? Let's just monitor that and see if these entities are implementing the audit action plans. So we started doing that. We had a virtual meeting in 2020, in 2021, and 22 and 23. We actually went there. That's when we did all this oversight that we're talking about. Actually, in the subsequent years, when we started doing this, we started seeing a lot of improvement in the audits of the finance portfolio. When you go to the entities and say, okay, where's your audit action plan? What have you done that the AG expects you to do? Why have you not done it, and so on? So they will report to the committee. So AXA came last year and told us that the audit of the 22-23 financial year started to show a lot of improvement, because 11 out of which is 69% of all the entities falling that they audit within the portfolio received an unqualified audit opinion with no findings, which was a substantial increase from the 37% in the previous year, which was 21-22. So many other entities achieved the clean audit as well, and some entities maintain their audit outcome. So what we could propose to the committee is to carry on if there are any adverse findings in any of the entities within the portfolio. We normally do it in before the budget in February. So after we table the BRRR report, so we go and see, have you developed the action plan? What's happening? So that oversight is quite important. We recommend it to the committee that it carries on with that. And the AG said we must carry on. We are assisting them a lot when we do that. They also added other issues last year and said, can you start monitoring the MFIP, the performance in the local government space, and so on? And I think the committee will have to look into that, especially on the issues that fall within the portfolio in National Treasury. Another issue of oversight another important issue of oversight that we were that was before us was the integrated financial management system. It's not only us who have been dealing with this, also Scopa. It's just that we have not coordinated to work together in this issue. Perhaps this committee should consider doing that. The FMS, I'm sure there was a presentation about it last week. Started in 2005 with another FMS2, which was going to be an off-the-shelf system. The first one was going to be a boutique, and the second one was going to be off the shelf. So a lot of money has been spent on this system. If you look from 2005 and so, it's not just this 400 million. There was money spent buying things and so on. So it's in the billions, the actual amount of money that has been spent on the FMS. So it's a very critical issue that the committee needs to look into as a portfolio of finance. Scopa is looking at it. Perhaps there could be some kind of synergies between this committee and Scopa so that it's not some kind of duplication. So there have been investigations here which were conducted by the SIU, by the public protector, by Deloitte, and another agency called Nexus, and so on. They've raised concerns about mismanagement, irregularities, and actually, some say there was corruption, especially the SIU. They said we're canceling this contract and so on. So it's a very critical issue for the committee to look into. We also visited a center in Johannesburg, in Pretoria, which is at SITA, to see where this project is housed and the software and hardware that is going to deliver it. And we drew a blank. Some of the staff at SITA said, we don't know such things. It doesn't exist. So it's a very important critical issue for the committee to have a look at. Another issue of critical importance is the land bank issue of default. In 2020, the land bank defaulted on its debt and triggering some kind of a crisis because the Reserve Bank had to act and downgrade its assets and so on. So National Treasury had to provide fiscal support and recapitalize the bank with 3 billion, which was transferred in 2020. And there's 7 billion when at the time we wrote this, that was pending the transfer. So the major issues here is that this thing, there has been no liability solution that has been found. I'm not sure if there was a different presentation that was made last week. So it's an issue that needs to be followed up because without it being functional, its mandate cannot be implemented, especially of funding the farmers and ensuring transformation within that sector, the agricultural space. The issue of Sasria was triggered by the July unrest, and Sasria, we know it, everyone pays for it when you're buying any type of short-term insurance. So when there were riots and people started claiming, and I think the total claims that were made were 37 billion following the July unrest, and the insurance company didn't have that money. So we need to follow up because it did get some funding from Treasury, from the fiscus, and also from its own assets. It did receive payments to settle this claim. So what the committee needs to do is to keep in mind so that we ensure that this entity comes back into a sustainable space in terms of its finances. The issues of the tax ombud, sixth committee of Parliament has been dealing with these issues since the time of Judge Bernard Ngwepe when he was the tax ombuds. The issue is operational and financial independence of this office. The office falls under SARS, depends on SARS for its functioning and also the budget, but also it has to oversee the work of SARS. It's good if there's an entity like that and you've got a good commissioner and so on, and they work together with the taxonomy. But in instances where there is no synergy between the two, we cannot leave it to the goodwill of the position holders. There has to be some kind of a formal system where this institution can operate independently and financially independently. So there's been that issue around this office. Other issues that came to the committee were the issues arising from the Nugent Commission, which was formed to investigate the issues at SARS, like issues of governance breakdown, and also propose remedial measures. So as a committee, we were asked to actually oversee the implementation of that by SARS and also by the Ministry of Finance. So that's one of the issues that the committee needs to also keep in mind, that we have to see if the proposals that were made in the Nugent Commission have been implemented, and if they have not, why have they not? Is it the recommendations that perhaps government decides not to implement at all? And some of the issues that were dealt with there was the issue of the oversight of SARS. What kind of a model should be there? Should it be an inspector or should it be an ombuds or things like that? So it was there in the Nugent Commission report. So we also had a party commission, which was established by government to look at allegations of impropriety at the PIC. The PIC had been accused, it was all over the media, of giving, was accused of some kind of irregularities and improprieties, maladministration, and so on. So there's a committee that deals with that the PIC falls under. We also expected to ensure that we oversee the implementation of those recommendations. PIC had invested in a number of big companies like the Steinhoff, the Segunjalo, IO Technologies, SA Home Loans, and all those things. So those are the issues that we had to oversee. We got presentations in the Sixth Parliament from mostly all these entities, some of them complaining about actions being taken by the PIC and wanting the committee to intervene. But there's also legal action in the same time. So it's one of the issues that the committee should consider. The Zondo Commission of Inquiry recommendations, we know about this commission, but there are issues that actually fell within the mandate of this committee. So we had to develop an action plan on how the committee will oversee all those things, given the action plan that had been given to Parliament by the President on how it's going to ensure the implementation of the Zondo reports. Particularly here, issues that were investigated in the commission relating to tax offenses, relating to illicit financial flows, people taking money abroad. And in the progress report, which was submitted by SARS during the annual reports, they said they had referred about 13 cases arising out of the Zondo Commission to the National Prosecuting Authority for prosecutions. There had been also actions that had been taken by regulatory agencies like SAICA, Independent Regulatory Board of Auditors, and SAID. So when there were a number of issues raised in the report about the behavior of professionals within those spaces, like your auditors, you know. As a result of that, the committee processed, because there were a lot of complaints about those issues. We were very proactive. Even before the Zondo Commission report came out, we were already dealing with the issue within the audit profession, like IVA, and how to ensure that there's a disciplinary committee which can impose believable sanctions, you know. So we have been getting progress report on this, like the 10-year ban on Bain and Company, and we're following up with other companies are also going to be banned, you know, from doing business with the state in South Africa. The public procurement bill is an issue that was also raised. The previous committee passed this bill last year, the public procurement bill, and it has been, I think it has been signed by the president now. And other issues that were raised were issues of money laundering. We passed a law last year, which is the General Laws Anti-Money Laundering and Combating of Terrorism, the GLA Act. It's been passed. We also received a briefing on the issue of, which was raised in the Zondo Commission, about the arbitrary and unilateral closure of bank accounts by financial institutions. The issue was raised in the Zondo Commission. You saw the executives of banks going to present on how the accounts of the Guptas were closed and so on. But the issue that the Zondo report raised was the arbitrary nature of the closure of the accounts regarding bank accounts as an essential function that people have, and there needs to be laws that are there to protect consumers against the unilateral closure of accounts. We've received a lot of complaints in the committee regarding this. Some have come to present to the committee to say, hey, our accounts are being closed by the bank. We are not sure if they are following the law. And many issues are still before court because there's been no court judgment which clarifies this issue. But mainly what happens here is that when a bank sees that you are being reported in the media negatively, especially involving financial matters and so on, or you are politically exposed, your father is a politician, they can just say, we don't want to have you as a customer. You are exposing us to reputational risk. But is it lawful to do that? You know, we have seen things like this happening in other countries, and the action of regulators have been quite different compared to South Africa. Like here, that you say, let the legal process take its course, and in other countries, they say, okay, but what is this that is happening? So it's one of the issues that we recommend the committee to look into, because there is an act as well that is pending that has not been introduced, the coffee bill, which is supposed to regulate market conduct or the conduct of financial institutions. Another issue of oversight is the illicit financial flows issue and the taxation of the digital economy. We've had several meetings on this. We've received reports from the Interagency Working Group on Illicit Financial Flows. Many agencies have come together to investigate these issues. So it's one of the issues that we recommend that the committee looks into. And also there's going to be this introduction this year of a global minimum corporate tax, which will be introduced to a bill. It's some of the issues that are really going to be interesting, because we want to, the government wants to make sure that everyone pays their fair share of their taxes. Another issue of importance, Chairperson, is the FATF grey listing of South Africa. South Africa was grey listed, especially one of the first members of this board to be grey listed by the organization. Normally, FATF grey lists quasi-members, not full members, you know. So for its deficiencies, not that these other countries don't have deficiencies in their money laundering laws, they do have, but I don't know why it decided to act in this manner when it comes to South Africa. So, but South Africa is busy handling this thing. It has to deal with this, address the technical compliance issues, and there are action items that are supposed to have been performed for South Africa to get out of the grey list in January 2025. I'm not sure if this will be doable. I haven't had the latest presentations from the National Treasury on this, but the committee needs to monitor this. Another important issue of oversight is the issue of transformation in the financial sector. Many reports coming from the BEE Commission and other agencies are saying there's a decline now in Black ownership, including transformation in the financial sector. This is a very important issue. The Fifth Parliament Committee had written a report about issues of transformation, especially the implementation of the financial sector codes. When this committee came, the Sixth Committee came, it wanted to ensure that there is a summit held to deal with the issue of sector codes, because the last summit that had been held had been in 2003 or 4, somewhere there. So it's long overdue. We were promised that it's going to be held, but it seems as if there was some kind of a pushback when it comes to holding the sector summit. Because for the whole 5 years, we'll keep on inquiring about what's happening with this summit, and a lot of stories will be said. The issue of closure of bank accounts, we've mentioned it. Some affected parties came to present to the Sixth Committee saying that they have implemented a case in the Western Cape High Court, Equality Court, highlighting issues of discrimination, that the actions that are taken by banks are discriminatory because there are other companies that are known which are not taken action against. So there are those kinds of issues. Just before the committee rose, there was this issue of Itala Bank and the tussles between it and the National Treasury, not the National Treasury per se, but by the Reserve Bank, the regulator. And so there are issues around Itala that it couldn't take deposits at some point, and committee came to receive a presentation, and some members of the committee visited there. But what the emphasis of the previous committee was that we cannot allow Itala to fall like VBS. We need to make sure that this entity is there to ensure that it reaches many parts of the province, which many other commercial banks don't do. So on the basis of transformation and financial inclusion. So it's an important issue. The issues that were recommended, I don't know if I'm still within my time, Chairperson. I think I still am. Issues for consideration here. We've talked about the dual capacities of the Standing and Portfolio Committee. That it's important for this committee to formulate efficient operational strategies to ensure that at least there is some focus in both these strands that we're dealing with. There is a focus on the portfolio side of the work. You see on the portfolio side, you have about 20 entities that fall within this portfolio. And also on the macroeconomic or fiscal policy part, you also need to make sure that you don't just meet only in February and October, because there are many issues that are being raised there, and the time is too limited when it's time to do the reports. So it's advisable. So the previous Fifth Committee had proposed the creation of subcommittees. This committee has to look at the issue, but from our point as staff members, I've spoken to my colleagues, especially the researcher, that it will be advisable for the committee to consider that a standing committee is formed to deal with fiscal policy issues, and it has to ensure that it deals with those issues in a much more comprehensive manner. And it does also, we have a portfolio committee that deals with particular issues which are related to the portfolio. So we also propose that this committee holds a strategic planning review where it develops a strategic plan for 5 years and annual performance plans, because that will make it easier for the committee to align and perform its functions. They have to prioritize adoption of minutes. Like in this meeting, we're supposed to adopt minutes of the previous meeting. We shouldn't wait for the end of the year. Like last year, I remember we ended up not even adopting the minutes for the sixth parliament. So we don't have minutes for the last term of that quarter. I don't know why minutes are not put in the agenda of the minutes. So committee should also advocate the empowerment of support staff, like attending of conferences and, just development of members of staff so that they are up to date with all the issues. We recommended the previous committee recommended that to this committee to prioritize building capacity within the broader parliament community for conducting socio-economic impact studies. We have a problem when we are processing private members' bills here. That we're expected to conduct these private members' bills.
Dr. Hlophe, you
Yes,
will have to stop. Remember, you started at 16 minutes past 9. I
Okay,
allocated 30
okay.
minutes.
Yeah, just give me just a minute to wrap up. The issue of the socio-economic impact assessments important. That is there before bills are sent to the committees, that those bills have been assessed in terms of their socio-economic impact. There are many other issues which are in the report itself, which was sent to the members. We encourage members, if they have not seen it, to actually read the report and pick up things that will assist the committee going forward. Chair, I'm just going to end it there. The report is there and the presentation is there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Hlophe. That's the legacy report presented by Dr. Hlophe from the 6th Parliament. This commission. So there we are, honorable members. There is an issue that I think we have to attend to as soon as possible. The issue of Itala Bank is back with us. I see FSA has suspended the license of Itala Bank, which has got very serious consequences for the depositors or clients of Itala Bank, more especially in KwaZulu-Natal and few in Gauteng. We'll either have to go to Durban at the Itala Bank headquarters to meet the Itala board, the MEC, and the FSCA, and maybe Prudential Authority. Or else they will have to come to Parliament as soon as possible. So we'll have to look at either going to Durban, if possible, or all these teams that I've spoken to, about come and account what must happen, because depositors are calling us and saying what is going to happen to their money and so on. I don't think we should allow another bank to collapse under our watch. We have seen what happened with the VBS, and now it's Itala. It can't be allowed under our watch. So let's take hands. Tebogen, Bzuti, you will assist me. I'm trying to get used to this laptop. I see Honorable, is it Beasley? Honorable
Yes.
Kaleka, Honorable Makuvena. Who else? I only see the three from my side. Honorable
Yes.
Bateman. Is it all, Bulten?
Yes, Chairperson.
Honorable Beasley, Honorable Kaleka, Honorable Makuvena, Honorable Bateman.
Thanks, Chair. So, can I go? Sorry.
Yeah, over to you, Honorable Beasley.
Thank you, Chair. So I agree with Itala. I think we need to act on that very quickly, and you're all welcome to come to Durban. It'll be great to host you. But Chair, if I could just get an understanding of how as a member of this committee, we can ask for areas to be addressed. I sent you an email last week about grey listing, and I haven't had a response. So I'm not criticizing that I haven't had a response. I just want to understand how we as members can bring items onto the agenda to be considered. Particularly, I was referring to the grey listing, and I think it's an important area that has been brought over from 6th Parliament for us, 7th Parliament to address. So just how we as members of the committee can get things put on the agenda. If you can just clarify that for me, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Beasley. Honorable Kaleka.
Thank you very much, Chair. Am I audible?
Yes, can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. And I'm appreciating the presentation. May I also request that the presentation as presented now be sent to us as well, because I got disturbed when I got off the bus. It was raining. There's a part that I did not get. But agreeing with you on the urgency of looking at the Itala issue and the proposals we have made, Chair, I fully support that. And thirdly, which is lastly, on the recommendations made by the team, I think the recommendation on addressing the shortfalls of the last parliament, of the 6th parliament, need to find expression on the recommendation. When Dr. Hlophe started, he started by making a disclaimer in terms of the role of the committee, which is oversight and scrutiny, and the less oversight visits or oversight that was done, less study tours domestically and otherwise. I think we need to close that gap, and it has to find expression on the recommendations that this committee should at least do so much oversight visits as well as the study tours. I know that the study tours might be, especially the international ones, might be limited, even if it's the chair who is going there, but the committee should be represented in terms of oversight. So I think that should find expression. And I didn't hear the other things, but what we need to do in the 7th Parliament, Chair, is to make sure that the things that we were unable to do, or the committee was unable to do previously, we close those gaps, because this is an important committee that looks after the fiscal of government and the purse of the people. So yeah, I end there, Chair, as I'm about to get to an appropriations meeting, which starts now at 10. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Kaleka. Honorable Makuvena.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mine is just for Dr. Hlophe to just expand on the dual role of the committee, because he's mentioned it in the first opening of his presentation, that this standing committee has two roles. One that is formed by the Act of Parliament as a standing committee to look into the macroeconomic policy, and then the other as a portfolio committee. And then he's also then, towards the end, gave explanation that given the the amount of work because of this committee having dual roles, at times the committee becomes too far stretched. Can perhaps maybe in future committees they give us a synopsis of how they see that we can be able to have subcommittees within this committee. But other than that, Chairperson, is to appreciate this legacy report. It does give us an understanding of what transpired in the sixth parliament, and also highlighting the work that is coming from the fifth parliament. Can they actually, for future purposes, in the nearest future, be able to give us some sort of understanding how perhaps the subcommittees can be able to function? And then the last, Chair, is to overemphasize the fact that the committee has to have a program for next week that talks to the Itala Bank issues. Be it that Itala board and the MEC come to Parliament, or we go to KZN, but there has to be a program within this committee for next week, as we understand the anxiety from the depositors of Itala Bank and what they are going through. We do not want another VPS saga, as this reflects on the banks that are closer to the marginalized, which is Black people in particular, and those that are not having much resources. So we have to act and ensure that we resuscitate and bring life to this bank, also assist it for its sustainability, so that in the near future they do not find themselves in the same situation which they find themselves now. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks, Honorable Makwel. Honorable Bateman.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, thank you very much, Dr. Hlophe, for a very informative, helpful briefing on the legacy report. It raises a number of very important and relevant oversight issues and recommendations. And my request, Chair, is could we take some time over each one of the oversight issues and each one of the recommendations and decide together what further steps are required in relation to each one? In some cases, I think the issues have been closed, but in many, they are obviously ongoing matters that need to be considered. And I think we need to do it systematically. So actually have a meeting with an agenda and each of these items on the agenda so that we can discuss them, as I say, agree next steps. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Bateman. Dr. Hlophe, can you respond to some of those issues? I will also respond to the issue raised by Honorable Beasley.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you to the members for the questions, and I'll just answer things that I can answer. I think others, Chairperson, will handle. On the issue of the dual mandate of the committee, is that the Act which establishes this committee, the Money Bills Act, Section 4.1 of the Act, it establishes it to do specific work which relates to the fiscal framework and money bills. It does not say it must also operate as a portfolio committee. So I think there are issues there. Maybe legal services may need to explain to us as well on how this operates. I think when a new term of parliament starts, the Rules Committee need to specify that this committee can also do the work of the portfolio of finance. Because when the committees were established, there was no establishing of a portfolio committee on finance. It was just said a standing committee on finance. But a standing committee on finance in terms of the Act is not formed to do the portfolio committee work. It's not there in the Act that this committee must also do the portfolio committee work. So I don't know how this could be done. I know there were rules that were passed for the establishing of the committee, Rule 230 and so on, but maybe the legal services can actually explain to us how this works. But we have a dual mandate based on the functions that we have been given by the Parliament to do fiscal policy, oversight, and consider and pass the fiscal framework and the money bills. And on the other hand, the portfolio work is totally different. We have to look at the financial and non-financial performance of all the entities that fall within the portfolio of finance, which the number is quite huge, close to 20 entities, including the department and SARS, which are big departments. So, but when it comes to what the committee was established for, which is fiscal policy, the committee just doesn't engage much with it. We engage with it in February, yes, when the minister makes a speech, and also during the time of MTPBS, when the minister makes another speech. And we receive a lot of input from academia, from everywhere, and we really process their issues in a very, I mean, I don't know, because we're rushing now. We have to pass the fiscal framework. We have to pass the tax bills and so on. But throughout the year, there's a recommendation that we had put in that report that throughout the year, you need to follow up on the implementation of this fiscal framework that you were established to deal with. You need to follow up on get at least quarterly reports, get more engagement from academia, because you find that government is pushing a particular position, and there's a lot of opposition to that position that the government is, but we don't get time to really listen to what this opposition is from academia. We don't get these comparative kind of perspectives. We don't monitor how they are implementing this fiscal framework throughout the year. So then it piles up and we end up dealing with it in October when we're dealing with the adjustments budget. But that's what it is. Dual mandates, the other one is fiscal policy, the other one is portfolio committee work, which are totally different types of tasks. I don't know if forming subcommittees will assist, because you'll also need the number of staff, the members to participate in all the decisions that are taken by either of the committees. I'm not sure how this thing of subcommittees work, because we have 11 members of the committee. If you form a subcommittee, which means that will divide the committee into two. And I mean, when it comes to processing those issues and taking decisions, I don't know how that will work, because for both the work, you need a full complement of staff and full complement of members to look into those issues. They are quite important. And on other issues, members, yes, they can send, normally on a quarterly basis, we have a program that we develop, and they can also send emails to the chairperson if there is a pressing issue that comes after a quarterly program has been adopted. They can send even emails to the secretary and say, there's this issue. Can it form part of the agenda? I think those are the issues that I can deal with. When it comes to the issue of dealing with all the issues, oversight issues that are in the legacy report, I think that the best way to handle it on what needs to be done further is for the committee to have a strategic planning session and develop a strategic plan and develop an annual performance plan. Then that will assist the committee to really look at how it will tackle all of those issues going forward. Because right now, we're just planning as we go. Thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Kloppe, for the response. I think you have also responded to the issue raised by Honorable Beasley, that if ever there is an issue that an honorable member will want us as a committee to attend to. You can inform the chairperson and or the secretariat, Alan Tebuho, and then we attend to it and then get it into the agenda or the matter be attended to. Like you have raised the issue of the, there's an issue about FATF. So what we have to do is to get the finance department or treasury to make sure that they respond to the issue that you have raised with them. We write a letter to the minister to follow up, which I will have to sign as a chairperson, that a member has raised this issue. Treasurer, can you please respond? Because it's your responsibility as a member representing your constituency to deal with issues of interest to your constituency. So that's how we go about making sure that all issues that are raised by members, either to the minister or to an entity, they have to be responded to, in particular in writing. So that's critical for us to follow that procedure. So feel free to raise an issue with the chairperson or with the secretariat. Thanks, honorable members. Can we move to the next item, the PBO, Parliamentary Budget Office? Dr. Junkie.
Chair, very sorry, man. I'm trying to familiarize myself with my gadgets here. I wanted to raise a hand earlier on. I don't know if you'll allow me to make an input on the previous presentation. Good morning.
Okay. Okay, Honorable Van Rooyen, you will be the last, and then we move to PBO.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's not necessarily a new input. I think one speaker made a very important point on how we should process issues that came out of the legacy report. And I don't think that was responded to. I'm making my submission to support that particular suggestion, because we need to have more of an action plan. How are we going to deal with these issues? Because if we don't do that, I think some of the issues might end up falling within the cracks. So if maybe we can get an indication how I'm going to process some of the issues that came out of the legacy report, so as we ensure that the momentum is sustained, but also though we don't lose some of those important issues, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Van Rooyen. We'll look at that with the team here because we have developed what we call a tracking system of issues that have been raised, even in previous years, to make sure that they are attended to. So we have taken that issue into consideration, and we'll make sure as to some issues will be followed up as and when we meet an entity or when we meet a treasury. Others will be like we write to an entity or a treasury to say there was a matter like this that was raised at some stage. Can you please respond? So we have got a way of attending to issues that come from this committee. So we'll definitely do that, Honorable Van Rooyen. Can we please move to the next so that we don't run out of time? I see Honorable Bateman, you are raising your hand. Honorable Bateman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you also, Honourable Van Rooyen, for emphasising that point. If we have a mechanism for following up the different actions, would it be possible for us then to have a list circulated of what all of those different points are and how they are being followed up? So just that we have some sort of practical way that we can all see what is still to be discussed or what the current status is in terms of each of the different action items. Because I think for each of those oversight issues and recommendations, I think at some point we need to discuss that, or at least now I would like to know what the plan is as to when it will be put on the agenda again, and what the mechanism is for making sure that it doesn't fall off the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Bateman. We'll develop the action plan with the Secretariat and the researchers, and we'll bring it back to you. Thanks. PBO is now 10:15. You have got 30 minutes. That's 10:45 for presentation. Over to you, Dr. Chankis and your team.
Good morning, Chairperson. Thank you so much, and members. Thank you so much, and colleagues on the platform. Thank you so much for the opportunity to give committee a background in terms of the work that we do to support the committee. I'll take you through. My name is Dumisana Janchis. I'll take you through. I'm with the team on the platform. We'll take you through the presentation quite quickly, but I think we're just going to open to let the members know that what's our role vis-a-vis supporting the committee in delivering on its mandate. So just quick take you through that, and the colleagues will also take you through a specific example of the work that we do in supporting the committee. So that's really what this presentation will be about. The next slide. I think it's our first time. It's the first time we meet the committee, so we wanted to greet you and but also the presentation with you, and they invite you to engage the office when you have some of the support that you require related to the mandate of the committee. This is our outline of the presentation, as I outlined earlier on, to say, really give you a sense of what the PBO is and how we support oversight, and some of the specific work that we do related to Finance Committee for both the National Council of Province and the National Assembly. And also we give you an understanding on the issues facing our economy and society, and how we view the role of the budget to try to deal into those issues in particular. Next slide. The next slide, I think just next slide, I think what we're doing here, we're showing how the office is established and where it gets its powers to work, and how governance of the office is determined, and in particular, what are some of the areas, how do we go about doing our work, and how do we get information, not just within the Act itself, because the office was established by the same Act that established the committee, established the office as well, Section 15 of the Act, and set out how the office should function as well. Next slide. And the Act that established the office does also provide some sense of protection of the office in terms of clearly stating out what the office ought to do in support of oversight, and some of the specific measures that we need to do, slightly around doing research analysis on any bills that have fiscal implications. So we provide research analysis during the budget times, MTPS, but also follow-on research related to specific themes that the committees would find important as part of oversight. But also we do also initiate our own work, which we feel will support oversight. But it's within these core functions that we do our work as an office. Next slide. What we have done over the years since the office established, we have developed some sense of how do we fit into some sense of understanding in terms of how we fit into oversight as an office. And I think we have developed this graph, which is largely a diagram, a graph, a picture. I don't know when I call it, feel free to call it whatever you want to call it. But this diagram really shows how we see our work fit into the oversight ecosystem, and starting by showing that at the onset of it. But I think the emphasis really about this graph is seeing the budget within the context of social and economic development in our society as a country as a whole, where government set itself the goals in terms of what government wants to achieve, and from which the implementation is done by government and Parliament, using the Constitution as a way of oversighting how far the budget has been used to realize those aspirations at the national level. And I think we see our role as crucial within that context, where we provide Parliament with the analysis, insight that enable Parliament or members of Parliament to make understanding whether indeed has this budget been used to realize aspirations? So in a very simple way, we say, we provide this analysis to help Parliament using Money Bills Act to determine whether the budget has been really used to realize the socio-economic aspirations set out in the Constitution and various policies. So that's really how we want committee to understand our role fitting into the oversight mechanism. So this diagram, which is a snapshot to summarize how we see our role and how we support Parliament in its oversight mechanism. Next slide. So to re-emphasize the point I was making, the role of the state, we see the role of the state in societal development and progress, including the government's approach to public finance, largely to consider some of the socio-economic conditions. So in a way, we often emphasize that budget has to be seen in isolation of, it should not be seen in isolation of what government aspire to do, but within the context of it, it should be seen as a means to an end, not an end in itself. And that's how we really emphasize our approach to budget analysis in this regard. And we feel the oversight, our work has been able to support oversight within that context. And really, this is how we conceptualize our understanding of South African realities as a mainstay of providing support to committees on oversight, as firstly, through understanding the level of the unemployment, poverty, inequalities, that factors affecting household resilience, really interlinking with some of the key issues that lead to that. And secondly, thinking about how the economy, structure of the economy itself, really go about either aiding and supporting, dealing with these issues, and lastly, applying this understanding within the public finance government policy, and really providing analysis to members to say, is this budget or this policy stance taken in budget really enable or support the realization or dealing with these socio-economic issues? And that's really has been work that we do over the years in supporting the side. Next slide. Chair, there's a hand that's risen by Honorable Bateman. Should I continue or should I just wait? Okay. So in our doing our work, we often ensure that we have these four main objectives or fundamental principles that guides the way we do the work, that we support committees. We always want to make sure that our work is accessible to ordinary members of Parliament, of committee. So it's important that we get feedback from members in making sure that they understand our work and they can access our work. But also, as I mentioned at the beginning, that we always try to draw a balance between receiving the requests from the committees in terms of the work they want to do, but also, or want us to do for them, but also having our own initiative work, which we feel will support oversight at all of times. So we try to do those in most of the time, but also ensure that in what we do, we become transparent in terms of how we do go about doing our work, and I'll make sure that members can understand the process which we follow to drive the work. And lastly, ensuring that the office remain respected, independent, and also nonpartisan throughout the process that we do our work, and remain very, very professional as we go. So it's important when members deal with us requesting our support, understand these principles that we work within the office in supporting oversight. Last slide, I think it's the last slide. Chair, the sound quality is very poor with much distortion on the microphone. Is this everyone? Okay. Okay, I don't know why is my sound bad. I apologize. Some of the work that we give for the committee, I'll just stop there and allow Professor Siraj to take us through, because I think there isn't much that I'll talk to. I'll come in later. Hopefully, I'll fix my sound will be better when I come in later. Thanks so much, Siraj. Take us through to the members through, and just note the time as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Janchis. Just this slide shows sort of the kind of outputs that we do have, and I think Dr. Janchis wanted me to move on to the next section particularly. This slide shows our workflow process, which I think is fairly clear that requests should come through chairs of committees to the PBO. And yes, so the section I'm going to be dealing with is the PBO's understanding of the South African economy that informs our advice for oversight of the fiscal policy framework. And this, I think, is particularly important given that part of the Treasury's input on the induction was to talk about the economy and fiscal policy related to that understanding of the economy. So we start off talking about understanding South Africa as a country of extremes, the unemployment, poverty, and inequality crisis. To start with, what we want to highlight is that many countries around the world express concern about things like unemployment, poverty, and inequality, but it's really important to understand how extreme and how South Africa, even within this global context, is an outlier. This graph shows the 44 countries in the world with unemployment above 10%. We see that there were 7 countries above 20%, and South Africa is one of those. And even within that, the small group of unemployment above 20%, we form a fairly an outlier. And what we want to state is that the performance and resilience of an economy, including its ability to benefit from foreign investment and technology, depends on its ability to develop and draw on the potential productivity, talent, creativity of all its people and their demand for goods and services. But what we see is over 40% of the workforce in South Africa are unemployed or have given up looking for work. The unemployment rate is not just highest in the world, it's a global statistical outlier, and it's a major contributor to the high levels of poverty and inequality. And I should add, it's also one of the reasons why we end up having such a large percentage of our population dependent on the provision of social services and grants from the government. Unemployment, poverty, and the inequality crisis, we see that the extreme levels of unemployment, poverty, and inequality are structural in nature with racial and gender dimensions. We also draw on the work and experience globally. We're talking about multidimensional poverty, and refers to deprivation across many aspects of people's lives: poor health and malnutrition, poor access to water, energy, education, and jobs. We see unemployment, poverty, and equality as a fundamental reason for socioeconomic problems in South Africa and the poor performance of the economy. We see that unemployment, poverty, and equality erodes the social fabric, reduces the resilience of houses and businesses, particularly to the several interrelated crises the world faces today, including the possibility of future pandemics, the global climate change crisis, the cost of living crisis that we've been going through since the COVID pandemic particularly. But we see it eroding social fabric in terms of increasing social conflict, and that then causing a constraint on investment and economic growth. The last table shows the inequality in terms of access to jobs and the unemployment rate, and we see that the racial dimension to that we've spoken about. And the legacy and inadequate redress of spatial apartheid reinforces the racialized nature of poverty and inequality in South Africa as well. And I suppose one point to make is that when we look at what the social wages as part or social expenditure part of the budget, it's important to realize that social wage part of the budget, or social part of the budget, gets spent on everybody, not only the poor. And often because of people's the multidimensional poverty and spatial inequalities in South Africa, even if some people pay more taxes, they're able to benefit from the social wage more because of the situation within society and the advantages that comes with not being poor, for instance. Over 50% of South African households suffer from debilitating poverty. This graph just shows the extremes of income and wealth shares. The light green bar is the wealth inequality. And we see that in South Africa, because of debt, the bottom 50% actually have negative wealth. These numbers are taken from the 2022 World Inequality Report. The two bars right on the right are the top 1%, which is included in the top 10%. So if you were to add up all of these groups, it would come to over 100% because the top 1% is included in the top 10%. But it was just to show that a few 100,000 people in South Africa have 55%. The top 1% have 55% of the wealth in the country. So this level of inequality was classified as the founder of the Palmer ratio, and he writes about this in one of his papers, as obscene inequality. He says countries with the Palmer ratio above 4, and the Palmer ratio measures the incomes of the bottom 40% to the top 10%. And he finds, for instance, a country like Brazil has an extreme inequality with a Palmer ratio of 3. South Africa's Palmer ratio is over 7. The IMF reports that excessive inequality could erode social cohesion, lead to political polarization, and ultimately lower economic growth. I think this is a really important point for us to remember as we come to thinking about what the Treasury view on growth is as well. We also see the link to this whole issue of instability and unsustainability. This graph shows the number of service delivery protests in South Africa from 2004 to 2022. And Municipal IQ that puts out this data makes the point that service delivery protests are now regular occurring and firmly entrenched social phenomena and accepted course of action by unhappy communities. It is no longer possible to dismiss protests as one-off events sparked by an unusual or really occurring set of circumstances. I think if one looks at this graph, you'll see that there's this phase shift after 2011 from 2012 onwards, and this is the period in which the fiscal consolidation, fiscal policy was implemented, and at that time it was implemented as a temporary phenomenon, stayed with us throughout the period. And we see that during the COVID pandemic that the number of protests dropped, and then after COVID, the numbers go up to 2022. We see it coming back up towards the level it was in 2019 again. So the discussion of macroeconomic stability and fiscal sustainability must consider extreme unemployment, poverty, and inequality, and the unraveling social fabric. Extreme UPI has corrosive effects on stability and sustainability in society, the economy, and politics. Extreme UPI increases the likelihoods of more large-scale, extremely costly events such as the July 2021 unrest, which resulted in an estimated 353 deaths and 50 billion in damage. Okay, so the next slides go on to talk about the other aspect of the South African economy, thinking about the economic structure and the sectoral structures, but also particularly the high level of concentration in the economy. So we started with just reminding people of what the National Treasury presented in their induction to the committee on the 20th of August, and focusing particularly on the points made in slide 10, where they say the current realities of slow growth below the population growth and a strained fiscal position means that the South African society is forced to live in an environment of scarcity. This means that not all needs can be met adequately given the resources that we have. And to change this, they say we need considered action for sound macroeconomic framework, including maintaining low and stable inflation and stabilizing public finances. We need structural reforms to bolster competitiveness and other things, and we need to improve state capability. I'm not going to go through, read through all of that. The PBO's critical analysis of the National Treasury's diagnosis of the macroeconomic problems and their solutions is that we don't think that the National Treasury distinguishes between the macroeconomic goals and the tools. We think that they're treating the tools as goals and focusing on meeting targets for things like fiscal policy and the levels of deficits and debts, rather than thinking through what are the goals. And the goals are reducing unemployment, poverty, and inequality. That's been the stated goal of government for the last 30 years. It's also been the stated goal of the parliaments as well. The National Treasury's growth view leaves out crucial details, which think that they fail to account for growth brought about by government investment and expenditure. The austerity-minded approach since 94 and fiscal consolidation since 2012-13 has constrained growth and exacerbated UP. We actually see that there's an important relationship directly. If we look at how we calculate national income from the expenditure perspective, it's household consumption plus government expenditure plus investment and net exports. And so directly government's expenditure, which often is about 20% of GDP, is an important contributor, but also has important multipliers within the economy, but also in the long term, government expenditure is an investment in the economy that can help with partnerships within the private sector and other stakeholders can actually lead to changes that increase the growth rate. And so to see the growth rate as just a constraint on the fiscal position rather than seeing the relationship and the interrelationship between the two, we see as a problem. The National Treasury's conception of structural economic problems focuses on symptoms, not causes. South Africa's economic structure has extreme levels of inequality and market concentration. The structural reforms as formulated are very likely to exacerbate inequality and market concentration. And we'll come to talk about that a bit more next. So we see the National Treasury's diagnosis of the causes of low growth in the South African economy as leaving out the history and evolution of the structure of the economy. And this relates particularly to the high levels, the extreme levels of concentration in the economy. Developmental trajectories and growth paths of economies are path dependent. In other words, conditions that were present in the economy during the transition to democracy have set the basis for the current state of the economy. Key factors to inform an evidence-based structural economic analysis must consider the very high levels of market concentration across all economic sectors and how to shape the sectoral structure of the economy, the levels of deindustrialization that have occurred in the economy since the 1980s, which has been responsible for low levels of value added and lack of diversity of the industrial core of the economy, the link between market concentration, economic structure, unemployment, income, and wealth inequality. So the main point of this slide is basically to say that the structural economic problems have existed over a very long period. We've had inefficiencies in infrastructure and services, low productivity, low global competitiveness, and high levels of corruption in South Africa since before 1994. These have been features of the economy for most of the 20th century. They were baked into the economy during apartheid, and while they may have been exacerbated by recent problems, they existed long before. Inadequate levels of investment for decades, over decades, for building a diversified, productive economic base and improving the well-being and education of all South Africans has created an economy that is not dynamic and unable to provide employment for its people. So just to go into some of the issues that are part of the development of and evolution of the South African economy and what happened. These are selective and not comprehensive, but I thought they were worth mentioning. The core of the economy in the 20th century was based on a cheap migrant labor system and Bantustans, and this has left a legacy of spatial apartheid between rural and urban areas and within these locales. South Africa's industrial base developed around mining, minerals, and electricity sectors, and this is one of the core reasons why it's been so highly concentrated, energy intensive, and reliant on cheap fossil fuels. The formation of a national electricity grid and the state monopoly ownership of electricity and other network industries was promoted by the large mining finance houses. The formation of Eskom with Eskom with a C in 1923 happened with support and even before that pressure from the large mining finance houses who wanted a state-controlled electricity industry and a national grid. So part of this legacy, I think, is what we have with large SOE monopolies. Then more recently, the growth of network industries, example, mobile phones, etc., provided further opportunity for oligopoly control and licensing associated rents in the economy, further concentration. So by the 1980s, we see the economy had become intensely concentrated. 6 mining and finance conglomerates controlled over 80% of the JSE by market capitalization. Many of the largest conglomerates shifted their focus abroad in the 1990s when they unbundled and listed offshore. The unbundled subsidiaries kept dominance over South African markets. These large corporations focused on extracting resources, financial and monopoly rents in South Africa. So resource, financial and monopoly rents became the easier way than building on the productivity and increasing the diversity and depth of the industrial base of the economy. At the same time, we saw that in the Asian tigers were investing in manufacturing and deepening and building their industrial base and becoming globally competitive in exporting. So this table, I won't go through all of the columns, but it just shows the extreme level of concentration across all sectors. We see that the last column shows the Herfindahl-Hirschman index, and the notes shows you that it's accepted that 2,500 points values, so HHI above that points to a highly concentrated market, and we see that, and this is from the Competition Commission. They measured it for all sectors of the economy, and we see in these priority sectors, particularly, that they are very high. We see the top 100 firms on the JSE by market capitalization. We're seeing that the percentage of total JSE market capitalization of the top 100 has increased since the 90s to the point where it's 97% now, the largest corporations. And the problem of concentration is not just in sectors controlled by SOEs, such as electricity, rail networks, but across all sectors of the economy, public and private. The Competition Commission shows that dominant corporations use uncompetitive practices, including mergers and other things. They also present evidence of collusive behavior and price setting for a wide range of products, including bread, flour, steel, wire, cement, plastics, bricks, concrete, and construction. And also they had been investigating pricing in the financial sector as well. Lack of competition has created conditions for the largest dominant firms to enjoy higher profits and share prices without corresponding increases in fixed investment and in plant and machinery. I won't go through this graph in detail. I'm happy to answer more questions on it, but it basically shows how a large share of our total investment is by the top 100 corporations. And so they basically have a large role in shaping the economy, but also a large role in determining the growth path and where the economy is going. It's worth pointing out that the dotted line is the top 100 capital expenditure as a percentage of private sector gross fixed capital formations. It's red on the right-hand side axis. And we see that compared to the black line, which is the top 100 capex as a total percentage of total gross fixed capital formation, it has been increasing since the global financial crisis, showing more outward activity. So investment of the top JSE 100 continued to increase, but through internationalization and foreign investments, large-scale mergers and acquisitions, and only replacement of capital rather than expansionary investments in South Africa. There's a IMF paper, a working paper on concentration in South Africa that raises some really important points. I don't think we have time to go through all that, but basically to say that they show that low growth and productivity is correlated with rising market power that fuels markups beyond double digits. Rising market power has also been associated with a slowdown in job creation, thus translating into rising unemployment. And they also see it as inhibiting the emergence of small and medium-sized enterprises. In terms of our growth path and the structure of the economy, there's been industrialization since the 1980s. Our services sector has become one that largely is not in support of the productive spheres of the economy. It's more in support of exporting primary goods, wholesale and retail trade, and of important domestic products, and increasingly speculative activities in real estate and financial markets. And so this graph talks to the need to industrialize and to see manufacturing, which is globally across the literature still seen as an engine of growth for the economy. And it talks about the possibility of moving to a new growth path. I know that it's 10:45 and the chair wanted us to end, so I'm not going to go through the graph showing the structure. I think I'll just say a word about this. This graph shows capital stock of the economy. It provides a sense of how the structure of the economy has evolved over time and what it can produce, and where it can create employment and growth in the future. And I think it's important to understand that South African corporations haven't been using their profits and rents for productive investment. If we look at 2022, the column there, and gives a breakdown of all sectors of the economy, in real terms, we see that manufacturing and construction is a very small percentage of our total capital stock, and that it's actually declined by 2%. It's 6% in real terms since as a share of the total capital stock since 1993. I'm not going to go through these slides. I think maybe at this point I'll just go back to the Dumisani to carry on with the conclusion. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Siraj. Thank you, Chair. Just a quick summary, Chair. This presentation will remain, and we're here to engage with the committee over the next term. Just a quick summary on the key issues. We do emphasize the importance of that the unemployment, poverty, inequality crisis. I will switch off my video. Cause social instability and huge limitations for domestic demand that constrain the development and growth of the economy. A concern about rising of inequality that is accompanied by globalization and post-democratic imposed apartheid South Africa over the last few decades, point to the issue of or emphasize the importance of need for inclusive development and inclusive growth, because clearly the wealth hasn't trickled down as the market's debates has often say. Therefore, development and growth requires both enhanced social security and access to basic services, as well as economic development through industrialization, which builds productive base of the economy, ensuring more people can participate in the economy. Short term, we are concerned about the short-term policy approach, which really should not only be about fixing load shedding or some of the short-term supply chain issues, but also address underlying issues of social fabric through the addressing daily support of household and really ensuring that we can support low-income households in that regard. Short-term development should also include a strategy that builds resilience in looking at climate change and also planning for future pandemics and ensuring that new round supply chains problems could be avoided or could take advantage of the situation as an economy. Next slide. In the next slide, I'm trying to summarize quite quickly. Okay. Our view, the aim of economic policy should be to build economic countries' resources, particularly potential of South Africa, and take advantage of the young population that we have, ensure that they can participate in the economy. Governments to promote investment in productive enterprises that supply goods and services, to ease burden on some of the socio-economic issues. The economy cannot meaningfully and sustainably develop only through the support orientation. We need to focus also on the local demand as well. The service sectors is large. We need to ensure that the service sector it supports the base line of industrialization and economy, ensuring that the more support of secondary sectors of industrialization, or to push for more industrialization, ensuring that they focus a lot on supporting manufacturing and other productive sectors of the economy. Next slide. So I think I'll stop there, and then we can discuss other slides later on. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I feel like the time is gone. Let me stop there, and members can read through the remaining few slides. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Jantjies and Dr. Siraj Mohammed. That's a presentation on the PBO, honorable members. Let's engage with the presentation. Remember, PBO also presented at the induction of Parliament when we were at Century City. Yeah, so this is a continuation, but now with specific reference to the support that they provide to our committee. Do we have hands? I see Honorable Makubele. Yeah, for now, it's Honorable Makubele. Over to you, Honorable Makubele.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. I must put a disclaimer, and that is speaking for myself. Listening to this presentation from the Parliamentary Budget Office, I am thinking that I really need a 1 day or half a day of a workshop to understand how they support this standing committee on finance and how they operate and how they are structured to be able to support the work of portfolio committees in Parliament. I'm not getting the grasp, I'm not getting the understanding. And that is just speaking for me. If other members of the committee are well conversant with the work of the Budget Parliamentary Office, they can say, and perhaps maybe Chairperson, you can arrange, or the Secretariat can arrange a half a day workshop for myself to understand the work that they do. And then the next question is around, I want to understand how do they work with there is this committee here in Parliament called Parliamentary, it's the Financial Management of Parliament. How do they correlate, or if they are the same portfolio committee, or how do they operate and function? And that's my disclaimer, Chairperson. I request to be assisted with further information so that I can be able to understand. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Makwela. Back to you. PBO, can you further clarify, honorable members, the role that you play in supporting this committee and Parliament in general? Because you don't only support this committee, you also support appropriations, SCOPA, and other committees, in line with the questions that Honorable Makwela has raised. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you so much to members, Honorable Makubele as well. We are also quite concerned that we don't have a lot of time, but we wish to extend to the committee members that we are available to engage with them as in when the need arises. And we feel that we will serve to sit down with them, even individually, just explain the office and how it works. It is our wish to make sure that the committee benefit from this office. And as Chairperson say, the House of Parliament as whole, because that's what to establish for, support House of Parliament on budget and fiscal issues in relation to the work of Parliament. The office does, I mean, what we normally do, we when the budget is presented, we provide analysis on the proposal of the budget. As I try to explain, maybe I run through quickly, but I'll just say what we provide in our budget analysis here. We say to members, I think there's six slides, Siraj. Thanks for it. 6 slides. The next slide. So what we try to do, we try to provide analysis that says, with the budget that has been presented by the Minister of Finance, how is it likely to influence economic growth, economic development, or dealing with the socio-economic issues, unemployment, poverty, and so on. So in a way, we say, this is the status of the unemployment and poverty and inequality. And then we say to members, this is a budget that's been proposed, and this is how this budget is likely to impact or change the situation as it is. And then we give you those analyses, we give that report, and then the committee decide to say, based on these analyses, what questions further seeking clarity from government, or what further directions or guidance they would give to government in terms of the budget itself. In a way, we strengthen oversight in that way to provide that insight that shows this is how things are likely to be, but largely focusing on the national budget. The office established largely deal with the national budget as opposed to the budget of Parliament. So there's a tree. I often use the example of a tree. I think I did use the example of a tree in the forest at the induction. So we focus a lot on the forest, which is the national budget. We advise on the national budget, we advise finance appropriations, but any other committee, because anyway, when you look at the education, for example, we look at the education's budget. The committee on education would benefit from that analysis because they'll say, actually, these are the key issues challenging in the education sector, and this is how the budget would like to address those issues, but all other functions as well for both houses. And this analysis, we make it available to members, but also we once we've done a presentation, we can sit with the committee one-on-one or individual members to explain further what we mean by the budget. At the end of the day, we allow the committees, the members of parliament, space to decide what they will put in the report in recommending whether to adopt the fiscal framework or whatever. But we want you to have this insight, which in many instances, the budget doesn't provide that information. Like, for example, one of the arguments we've made is that the budget has to provide the implications for unemployment when it's presented, but doesn't provide it. So we try to provide that information, particularly around the impact of the budget it likes to have. So in this way, members can benefit to say, okay, this is how the budget impact, and what's the question that the National Treasury or Government Department may have to respond to say, yes, we agree, we disagree, or we debate, or this is what situation is. But there's less disagreement, particularly when you think about where we are as a society, as a country. We have so much inequality and employment, and our view and approach to see how budget can be used fundamentally try to address those kind of issues, which largely around economic growth and economic development. Chair, I think I'll try to summarize there. With regards to Parliament's financial management of Parliament, that committee deals with the tree, which is the budget of Parliament, which is vote 2. So our analysis deals with all the votes, which includes vote 2. So that committee, in a very simple sense, will see it as an oversight committee for us as well, because when we have a budget as an office, now that's administration of the office. When you have a budget, when you have the reports, we have to table them to that report, where that committee will also hold us accountable for our budgets and for our service delivery as an office now, not on the more specific things. So I don't know if that's helpful enough, but we can always give Honorable Makubela's my phone or my office to come, so we can explain further on some of these matters. Thank you, Chair. I hope I've done justice there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Changis. Honorable Van Rijn.
All right, thank you very much, Chair. Finally, I got the right icon, which is not the icon that I'm used to, of raising a hand. Thank you very much for the presentation, Dr. Janji, as well as Prof. Mohammed. I think, Chair, maybe if I'm to employ the wisdom of hindsight, the Budget Office, and I'm happy that Dr. Janji emphasized on that, is open to assist individual MPs to understand other construct of finance and economy, or maybe economics, because there is a tendency within the South African political landscape to use these constructs as a scarecrow for majority of our public representatives. So I know at the inception of this office, I'm one of the beneficiaries of this office. And I'm happy that Dr. Janji clarified that even at the bilateral level, they are able to assist members, more especially members from the previously disadvantaged group. And I think so far, they've been doing a very good work, but also, even though when one was outside Parliament, I was able to follow on some of their submissions on various national topical issues. So I've seen their role to be quite, especially for those who are coming from a background where education was a privilege, they were not exposed to it as a privilege. In fact, they were somehow denied an opportunity, to learn from the education system. So I really appreciate the work that they've been doing. And I think the work should be supported by this particular committee and other parliamentary committees, because they've been very, very helpful to demystify some of the jargons and the concepts that are used in the political landscape of South Africa. But my specific question, Chair, is when last did the Budget Office perform what's called an impact analysis study on their office? I think that study is important, so as we are able to know if really the office is serving the purpose of its establishment. If ever a study was done in the past, it will be good if the findings of that study are shared with the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Van Rijn. Back to you, PBO.
Thank you so much, Chair, and Honorable Van Rijn. Thank you so much for following on the work that we do. I think this is how I'll answer the question about impact study. My wish when I started the role a few years ago, was to do exactly that, to say this office has been established when I started for 10 years or so. We need to do that impact study, particularly looking at different role that we've played and so on. I'll be frank and with the committee, the major issue that we've not been able to do that is lack of resources. We don't have resources. We're very limited in resources. We're in a very difficult situation. But nevertheless, what we have done also, we our own have also went around and did a 360 view to look at, even if without resources, to do this more independent, comprehensive analysis of the impact of the office, what can we see since we established that has changed or has improved over the years? And we have few slides that we have presented, we can share with the committee. But by Friday, we'll be publishing our 2023-2024 annual report. And the section specifically on the annual report that talks about what we see as a success or what has been impacted the office over the 10-year time. And I'll ask the team to share the report with the Secretariat as well, to see the report and see the work that we've done and how we see the impact of the office. But what I'm saying is that there's two sides of it. We want this comprehensive one, which is done by very independent mechanisms, which we don't have got resources to get that. But what we have done in the main, we have done our own as well, try to see what we have seen as an impact over time on specific things. We have 4 themes that we've highlighted, and the committee might want to read those, and that's going to be very useful to respond to the question in terms of how we see our value and how we see how much we've contributed over time, over the past 10 years or so. So we'll share with the committee. Also in the presentation that we did last week, as Standing Committee on Appropriations, we did show that specific slides that shows what we see has been the success of them. So what is the impact of the office on oversight? So we'll share that with the committee. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thanks, PBO. Further than that, after the minister will have tabled the budget in October, a month after next, PBO and FFC are required to come and give an independent view of the budget to SCOF, and then we take it from there. But from time to time also, we request the FFC, PBO and other entities to assist us to conduct research on issues that have to do with finance, because they also have expertise which sometimes us as the committee do not have. They complement our research team because they are quite very broad on areas of specialization. I've just spoken to Honorable Frolik, the chair of chairs. We are tentatively agreeing that next week, Monday, we must leave for Durban to go and conduct oversight on the issue of Itala. So we'll deal with the final details and we'll come back to you because he still have to apply his mind and also inform the speaker. But I raised the matter with him that it's an issue of national importance. Depositors are panicking as what's going to happen. So once he comes back, we'll communicate with you. So we'll have to go there, meet Itala board and the executive, meet the MEC of Economic Development, FSCA, and other related bodies, and probably visit, like we did last time, the branches of Itala. I know there's a very busy branch in town, in the city center, Anton Lembede Street. It's one of the busiest branches of Itala, and see what's happening. This is a matter which is quite very crucial for us to attend to. So as soon as our application is approved, we'll communicate with you. But I've raised it with him that this is quite a very important matter. So we'll suspend our workshop with SARS on a National Treasury on tax matters. And if it goes up to Wednesday, it means we'll also postpone our engagement with the Reserve Bank. We'll have to reschedule our engagement with them. Is there any announcement from the side of Secretariat before we adjourn our meeting?
We're still awaiting approval from the House Chairperson Office for tomorrow's meeting with the Reserve Bank.
Is it physical or?
Yes, it's supposed to be it's a physical meeting. They're supposed to come here to Parliament.
Try by all means to secure a venue. I think it will be important that we meet them physically.
We have secured a venue.
Yeah.
Max Building, second floor, room 201, committee room 201.
Oh, okay. So
But
let's
we'll
adjourn.
communicate once we have direct.
Okay. Let's adjourn our meeting, honorable members, until we meet again tomorrow at 9 o'clock to engage the South African Reserve Bank. Thanks very much, support team for the legacy report and PPO on further engagement on issues of induction, and everybody who was attending this meeting. Thanks very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Recording stopped.